So SP in 2015, World Economic Forum did a study on BRICS nation on the competitive rating of each of the 5 countries at that time. There were only 5 countries at that time in BRICS. And they looked at per capita export. India had the lowest competitiveness. In fact, Brazil, which was the second lowest, per capita export was 3 times India. And so we were wrecking our brains. Given India's demographics, the largest young persons in a country, and very bright young people at that, why is it so? I know capital availability, good regulations, infrastructure are important for export and competitiveness. But then you have countries like Japan, which had no infrastructure after the Second World War, no access to capital, and they became a powerhouse. In the 80s, they were like going to be the #1 economy of the world. Take a look at Israel, who is even worse off in terms of availability of source. So rather than comparing ourselves to Brazil and Mexico's of the world, even they are ahead of us in the studies, much ahead of us. We said, what is it that holds us back? And we work with IIT Gandhinagar and we work with Bankworld. We have a consulting organization, Bankworld, which we talked about earlier on. And said, let us do a nationwide study to find out what is needed to be competitive, globally competitive, and where do we stand relative to those skills. And using my Harvard Business School connection, I was able to get some advice from Professor Rifkin, who is #2 to Professor Mike Porter. Mike Porter is probably considered the doyen of competitiveness, and his studies on competitiveness are legendary. So with their help, with the help of faculty at IIT and the scholars at Bankworld, we came up with the idea of doing a nationwide survey of CEOs, academics, thought leaders in India. And we reached out to 27,000 of them and got responses from 10%, which is pretty good, I thought. 27 of 100. The questions were very simple. What are the mindset issues that are necessary to be globally competitive? That was part #1. Part #2 was, in the top 5 or in those skills, where do we stand? Where India? It was India focused, and not on an individual basis, but on a average basis. What came out was 5 key skills or soft skills or non-cognitive skills were identified by this massive nationwide survey as critical for globally competitiveness and ethical leadership. They went together somehow. And they were conscientiousness, perseverance, innovativeness, taking initiative, and problem solving. The second part of the survey, SP, was how do we, Indians in general, do in these 5 skills? And surprisingly, at least it was surprising to me, we did very badly. So we got out of 100, 18 in conscientiousness. And we were saying something should be done about it. And so we formed an institute here with 6 Indian Americans who have a lot of India experience and a lot of experience here, PhDs in social sciences and educationalists and entrepreneurs and myself. 6 of us sat through one whole year and created a program called Finding the Leader in You, which was not to tell people why these skills are so important or what these skills are, but to help them inculcate them. And one interesting question that came, so everywhere we go in India, they said, this is great program. But once or twice, some business people have asked me, he says, for global competitiveness, why do we need conscientiousness? Because companies are constantly bribing government leaders to get their, businesses. So that was a very interesting question. And we dug deep into the study. And we found some very interesting answer. So our real competition in long term is China, right? We have the same demographic profile, we have the same aspirations, smart, hardworking people. So how does China become so competitive? It's simply by a state control on people. I mean, it's almost like a police state. If you go to a factory in China, they cannot, they cannot raise their eyes and look at you as a visitor. They have to be working all the time, or they'll get a slap on their face, or get their money, their salary docked off. So there is a police control of making sure that people are competitive. In democracy, we can't have police control. So how do we police? Well, we have to police ourselves. And conscientiousness simply is doing the right thing when nobody is looking. That's the basic definition that came out of the survey. Conscientiousness is doing the right thing even when nobody is watching, which means doing the right thing when there is no police. So what a wonderful theory for a democracy. When you don't have your big brother watching you, your policeman watching you, you continue to do the right thing. So it made sense to us that conscientiousness was number one.